My name is Vincenza, and joining me today is Alicia and also Christy Lynn, who will be our moderator. So if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat and she will make sure that your questions get answered. I'm a program coordinator for the Empowering Financial Wellness program with USU Extension. In the chat, if you would please just let us know where you're tuning in from, we'd love to know. This webinar is brought to you by Utah State University Extension in partnership with the Utah Department of Workforce Services. So today we're talking about budgeting, and we're going to talk about some hacks and tips because we don't think budgeting needs to feel like drudgery. So we're going to share some practical, strategies and tips that hopefully will make budgeting easier for you, whether you're new to budgeting, you've never done it before, or you've been trying, and maybe you're looking for something, a different way to do it. This would be great for anyone, even if you're a beginner or maybe you've been doing budgeting for a while. So we're really glad that you could join us today. So to begin with, I just wanted to do a quick poll. If you can just put your answer in the chat, just kind of getting a feel for, there are a lot of myths out there about budgeting. For a lot of people, the budgeting is the B word, like it's a bad word. But we're here to prove that it's not. It's actually a great word. So I'm just curious to know if you would put your answers in the chat. Do you think it's true or false that your budget should be the same each month? Meaning the things that you're budgeting for, do you think it should be the same every month of the year? So just put true or false in the chat if you would, please. And then the second question is, you can't really effectively budget if you have weak math skills. Do you think that's true or false? And then the last question, if you're debt-free, do you still need a budget? Do you think that's true or false? If you have no debt, do you think you still need a budget? I'd like to know if you think that's true or false. And then I'll talk about what the answers are. So can somebody, I can't see the chat, but can somebody share with me what we got for answers? Did we get any responses for any of the poll questions?
We got false for number one.
Okay, number one, that is correct. There is a common myth out there that your budget, every month your budget should be the same. So people will write it one time and then try to make their lives match the budget instead of the budget match their lives. So if you're doing that, you're probably setting yourself up for failure. So your budget probably won't be, and it shouldn't be the same every single month because of variable expenses. So when I talk about variable expenses, I'm talking about like utilities. For example, in the summer months, if you have air conditioning, your electric bill might be a little higher than in the winter. There are holidays, maybe birthdays, trips, things like that. So it wouldn't necessarily be the same every month. Okay, the second question. You can't effectively budget if your math skills are weak. In data, what did we get any answers for that, Christy Lynn?
False.
That is correct. You only really need a 5th grade math level. So I had my son, who's a 6th grader, actually do a really simple budget, and he figured it out. I mean, he doesn't have a lot of categories, but it's basically addition and subtraction and division. But some people get intimidated by like, oh, I'm not good at math, I can't do a good job budget. But just because you don't like math or you don't think it's your strongest skill doesn't mean that you shouldn't budget. Because successful budgeting has more to do with behavior than it does with math. And that's what is hard about budgeting and personal finance, because it's about 80% behavior and maybe 20% math. So it's about making new habits, which, as we know, it's hard to do. It's hard to change habits. And then the last question is, if you're debt-free, do you still need a budget? Anybody answer that one?
We were split. We have a true and a false.
Well, I believe it's true. I think you should have a budget, because being debt-free and making a budget are not one and the same. They're two separate things. Of course, if you are trying to get out of debt, a budget is going to be even more crucial to you getting out of debt and having a plan for it. because it'll help you get out of debt faster. And I can attest to that because that's what I did. I never really did a budget until I was trying to get out of debt a few years back. And I would have never done it if I didn't have a plan, because that budget was my roadmap to getting me out of the debt lane, right? If you have financial goals, which most of our goals in life are tied to some kind of financial goal, right? I want to retire this. I want to go on vacation. I want to buy this. I want to do that. Most of our personal goals are tied to something financial. So budgeting should definitely be something that you do monthly. And believe it or not, the overwhelming majority of millionaires actually impose a strict budget on themselves. And you wonder, how did they get to be millionaires? Because they are probably paying very close attention to their money. But I don't want people to think of budgets as a restriction. I like to see them as a roadmap to building wealth, because that's really what this is all about, is improving our financial stability and moving towards whatever goals that we have in life. So thank you for participating in that. Now I'm going to move on and just talk about what are we going to cover today. Hopefully, what are the things that we'll learn? These are the objectives. So the first thing we want to talk about is, what are 5 key elements of any budget? There are lots of ways to budget, lots of methods, but all of them need to have 5 key elements. So we're just going to go over those. And then the second one is how to make budget tracking easy. A budget will not work for you if you're not tracking, because there's really no point of doing a budget if you're not checking in and saying, okay, did I make a good budget? Is this a realistic budget? Does this work with, what I'm trying to do? So tracking is crucial to having a successful budget. And then the third one is how to slash expenses and free up money, because maybe you're doing a budget and you're saying, I just don't see how it's going to work. And we want you to feel like, I don't want you to feel like you're on this money diet, because, again, people think is bad word, that it means restriction. That's like going on a money diet. And we don't want you to feel that way. Think of it as, okay, what's the least amount of money I can budget for X expense and still be happy? Because it's really important that you not only put your wants, your needs, you have to address both things, not just, okay, I need to pay my bills. Because if it's all about just paying bills, you're probably not going to stick to it. So you have to put some wants in there as well. And that's also crucial to having a successful budget. So let's talk about the 5 elements of any budget. So the first one is your why. So when I started doing a budget, I was really resistant to it with my spouse, because I felt like it was a restriction and like somebody was telling me what to do with my money. And I didn't like that. So we had to have a conversation of, okay, why do we need a budget? And so we had to spell it out so we can pay off debt, so that we can retire before we're 80 years old, so that, we can go on a vacation at our 20-year anniversary or whatnot. So I had to spell out the whys, like what is the point of doing a budget? So it's really important that you find your why. What is the reason, your personal reason for wanting to budget?
The
second thing,
something that I was talking to my husband about the other day, like this week, that he's like, I cannot budget unless I have a why, like a very specific why or goals that I'm working towards, or else a budget really does feel restricting to me. And so that's so true. Like you mentioned, that if you don't have that specific why or those goals, then it just really is hard to get going.
It's like, what's the point?
Yeah.
Like, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this and making myself feel like I can't do this, I can't do that? But when I'm going to cut back on this so that I can do that. And that's what really helped me, and it was really the variable expenses, like the going out to eat and the shopping, right? That's what was killing me. So that was crucial. And once I saw that picture painted in my brain and had that conversation, have it with yourself, with your spouse, partner, your friend, whoever, that's really crucial to having that vision of seeing, okay, this is where it's going to take me. So thanks for sharing that, Alicia. Because I was your husband a few years back. I was like sticking my feet in the ground. No, I'm not going to do a budget. The second one is income. In order for any budget to be successful, you really need to know how much money you're working with. So take into account, first of all, what your net income. So after everything gets taken out, what are you really bringing home? or going into your checking account. And then any other additional, whether you're getting other benefits, other income, making sure that's all included. So you give every single dollar a job. And that's how you get really intentional with your money. And also knowing when you get paid. So what some people like to budget weekly, monthly, or every time they get paid. So it's crucial to understand that. The third one is expenses and expense limits. So if you've never done a budget and you're wondering, I don't know how much to put, like for the fixed bills, it's easy. You know what your cell phone bill is every month. You know what your mortgage or your rent or maybe your car payment. It's those variable things like the groceries or the utilities. So if you're not sure, I encourage you to go back and look at bank statements or credit card statements and see what you've been spending in the last at least 3 months, because you'll get a good average of what you're used to spending, and you can at least start with that. Tracking, monitoring, again, I talked about that. It's crucial to make sure how you're tracking throughout the month, and then at the end of the month saying, okay, how did I do? I said I was going to spend $300 on groceries. Did I spend $300? Did I spend $500? Did I spend less? And it takes a few months of doing a budget if you've never done it to get one that's realistic, because it has to be realistic. If it's not, you won't stick to it. If you try to like cut half of this out or half of that out, which I did in the beginning, then I felt like I was failing every single month. I'm like, okay, based on the size of my family, this is just not realistic in terms of groceries for eating the things that we want to eat. So I had to, be realistic about that. And then the last one is reviewing and evaluate. Like I said, review, because it's really important to see if your budget is working for you. And then you won't know what changes you need to make unless you do that. So those are the 5 elements of any budget, no matter which method you're using, just to make sure that it's going to be working for you. Because it's not just about numbers, right? It has to have all of these elements in it. So Alicia's going to take you through, sorry, I talked through all those, talking about expenses and expense limits and kind of giving you a framework of how much should I spend in my categories.
And so like Vincenzo mentioned, we're just going to be talking about like the framework and maybe some recommendations that experts give for people to affordably be able to make all of their payments and still be able to kind of enjoy life as well. And so these things may not be exact to your situation. And so just keep in mind that it's kind of a framework. And like Vincenzo mentioned, that it really is important to go back and track how much you have been spending in different areas to see how closely a realistic budget will be to these recommendations. And so the first thing that we're going to talk about that experts recommend is having 3 to 6 months of your expenses set aside for emergencies. And so where exactly in that 3 to 6 months you fall can be totally dependent on you and your family's situation of how long you guys feel like it would take to potentially get another job in the field that you guys work in, or also just how much of a buffer or an emergency fund you feel like you would need in order to have peace and be able to sleep well at night. And then also experts recommend to be putting about 10 to 15% of your income towards your retirement savings, so that you're working on that a little bit at a time rather than waiting until you're like 50 years old and being like, wow, I only have $25,000 saved up and I usually spend $35,000 a year or whatever exactly it is. And so that you're saving up for it a little bit at a time. And then experts recommend that you are spending no more than 30% on your mortgage. And this is, again, so that it's affordable and sustainable for you guys. And this goes also with rent as well, that a rent payment should be around 30% of your income each month, so that you can still have a sufficient amount of income to go towards your other debt payments, your other bills, your groceries, and different other expenses as well. And then going along with the total debt, it should be no more than 36% of your income should be going towards your total debt, which would include the 30% going towards your mortgage or rent payments. And then any other monthly debt payments like credit cards or car loans. And then another idea that we want to talk a little bit about is the 50-30-20 rule. And so the idea is that 50% is going towards your wants, or no, I'm so sorry. 30% is going towards your wants, 20% towards your savings, and then 50% towards like your needs. And this way you're hitting all three of those main categories of your wants, your needs, and saving as well. Are there any questions about the 50-30-20 rule of thumb? Or any of the other guidelines that we've talked about?
And I just want to mention that there are others out there. I've seen 60-20-10. I've seen all different variations. This is one of the more common ones that we see out there that financial experts recommend, but it's by no means like the only rule of thumb out there with personal finance. And so your debt would have to fall in here too if you like as a want, if you got credit card debt. So everything has to fall within this. And it's for some people, it's just easier to just think of it in percentages. Half of my paycheck goes towards the bills and the things that I have to pay, and then the other half is for savings and for fun. So it's just figuring out a framework that works for you and how you think about where your money should go every month.
Right. And then also going along with that, what matters most is to set yourself up for success so that you're setting realistic goals and amounts that you and your family are likely to be able to stick to, and also that will help you to reach your goals as well. Because if you're setting unrealistic numbers, like Vincenza mentioned, about I'm going to cut out half of this category and half of this category all in 1 month, then it's going to be really hard and unrealistic to see yourself sticking to that budget. So ultimately set yourself up for success. So maybe change something a little bit at a time, which we'll talk a little bit more about later on as well.
Yeah, I had read something that like start with 10% like reduction, because most people wouldn't feel a 10% change that much, and then kind of gradually work toward, like you were saying, instead of doing a 50% cut or whatnot.
Right. And so the next thing that we're going to talk a little bit about is the two different types of areas where your money is going. So you've got your regular expenses that you have every single month, and then you have irregular expenses that come every couple of months or quarterly or twice a year, we'll say, that aren't every single year. And within that, in your regular expenses, you have fixed expenses and you also have variable expenses. So, Kaylin, what are some things that you could think of that would be considered a fixed expense that you see monthly?
Monthly will be my rent, the car note, the cell phone,
Right.
the light bill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so those things that
And auto insurance, I'm sorry. So yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect. So those expenses that you know are coming every single month and you know exactly how much it's going to be. Your light bill, it may fall a little bit more into the variable category because it may fluctuate just a little bit from month to month, but you still know approximately how much it's going to be though.
And I'll just share a tip that when I first started budgeting, that's how I started writing my budget. I started with what bills I knew every month. Mm-hmm. And then I worked from there because it felt really overwhelming for me to look at all these categories. And, I had like a form that I printed online, and whatever didn't apply to me, I just crossed it out. Yeah. Or if I wanted to change it, I just crossed it out and wrote it in pencil. And so for me, that just helped me. It's like, okay, I know what these things are because they're the same. I mean, I worked as a financial counselor with clients, and they could always tell me to the penny their car note, their cell phone bill, their rent, because it was the same every single month. But then when I asked them what they spent on groceries or going out to eat, I usually got a blank stare. So start with the fixed and then work your way. Just a tip that worked for me to not feel like I'm so overwhelmed because I'd never budgeted before.
Amen. And then those fixed expenses right there is usually going to encompass most of your essential things as well. Like you mentioned, it's so important to have your rent or your mortgage covered and then your utilities, even though they do vary a little bit, but making sure that those are covered. And then also your cell phone bill are a couple of your essentials. And then continuing on, like Vincenzo mentioned, a couple of variable expenses you could include your utilities into that, since they go up and down a little bit from month to month. Although generally you do have a pretty good idea of about how much they're going to be. Like in my family, with my husband and I, we can estimate that our utility bill is going to be between $110 and $125 a month. So we've got about a $15 range right there, but we still know approximately, all right, it's about how much we need to plan on each month. And then you could also include in the variable expenses would be groceries, and then also eating out as well. Those are kind of the harder ones to keep track of and cut back on, but they're so worth it when you're able to make those little changes. And then also a couple of other ones could include like your clothing. Let's see. Are there any other ideas that you could think of, Kaylin, of variable expenses?
No, that's it. Oh, yeah, that's it for me.
Okay.
Maybe gas or transportation, like.
Oh, yeah, the gasoline, yeah.
Yeah, because I wasn't driving much, last year. And then these last couple months have been driving more, and I'm seeing my gas, what I'm putting gas on my car is going up. So that's one
that
thing.
does go up. Yeah.
Yeah, and gas prices are going up too. I know that.
Yes.
So that could be one thing that could be variable. But again, if you just go back and see what you have spent, you'll get a pretty good idea of what you probably will spend, unless you make a conscious decision to say, I'm only going to spend $100 a month on going out to eat or whatnot, right? Even if you've been spending 500, things like that. So you just make a conscious decision to cut something back a little bit.
Right. And then going back to the utility bill one, we just have a tip that we wanted to share is that, especially if you've been in your apartment or home for about a year, or more, then you could ask the utility company to see if they offer a plan that gives you like a flat rate amount for each month based off of your usage for the last year. And so it averages out so that it's the same amount each month that you're paying. So if you are like some people that see that like in the wintertime, your utility bills, you're spending like, we'll say $50 difference compared to in the summertime, that can make budgeting kind of hard or a little bit harder. And so if you get on like this flat rate plan with them to where it's exactly $150 every single month for my utilities, then you can plan exactly that much for it.
Okay, I'll look into that.
Then there's no surprises, or at least not. There should not be any surprises if you get on the flat rate plan with them as well. And then what could you think of, or maybe like some expenses that are irregular that you don't have every single month, but they come up throughout the year?
I would say, like when you have to do the oil change or brakes or unexpected tires, like maintenance on the car, that's one.
Yeah.
And then if my daughter, she has to go to the doctor, if they say we have to go here, that's unexpected.
Right.
And then if I have to go to the pharmacy, you got to pay for that. So that's another unexpected. So yeah, stuff like that.
Yep.
Okay. And so there's a few other different ones that people kind of throw in with the irregular but expected ones. And so some of those could be like your car registration, like exactly which month that's coming, or which 2 months if you have 2 vehicles. Then you can plan, all right, in January and July, I know that that's when my car registration is due. Or your car insurance, if you pay on like a yearly basis or twice a year, then that could be an expected but irregular expense that you may want to be saving up for throughout the year. Also, another one that some people kind of forget about is anniversaries. Because oftentimes people want to go do something fun for their anniversary or for their birthday, but they forget to like actually make a plan to save up that extra money for those fun things because we know that they're coming. And then also holidays like Thanksgiving or Christmas or any other holiday throughout the year that you spend money on with gifts or traveling or even just extra food like the 4th of July, then you may want to be saving up for that with what's called a revolving savings account. Have you ever heard of a revolving savings account?
Revolving savings account. No, I have not.
Okay. And so essentially what it would be is you would list out those irregular but expected expenses.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of map out which months they are going to come and how much you know that they're going to be like approximately, approximately how much your car registration is going to be, about $105 or 110, whatever exactly it is, and plan how much you want to spend for Christmas or for your birthday. And then you would add up those totals throughout the year for those different expenses. And then you would divide that number by 12 to come up with a monthly amount to be saving each month.
So let's say you said 110 plus 105. So that's 215. If I divided that by 12, that means like I put about $18 aside every month for those things, just to simplify the example. And then that way, when you need the money, it's in this account and you didn't accidentally overspend it on something else. Like, oh, my car registration's due. Oh, I've got the $100 sitting in that savings account.
Oh, I had that. I'm sorry for cutting you off. I had that back in the day when I used to live in New York, upstate New York. There's credit union. They had all of that. Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, it's just a way to help keep you from feeling like from one month to the next, you've got this really big unexpected bill. It's just like little by little, you're just kind of swirling it away. And it doesn't hurt as much when that bill comes up that month.
Okay. I'm going to have to look into that again.
Because your regular expenses that don't come every single month, that can make budgeting really hard for a lot of people, because like Vincenza mentioned, it's all of a sudden like, oh, Christmas is here. I got to come up with $500 extra all in one month, which can be.
And then you put it on the credit card.
Right. Then a lot of people put on credit cards and you're paying it off for the next few
and they're
months.
Done that.
Nope.
The interest and so ultimately a revolving savings account can help make budgeting a little bit easier to keep up with those regular expenses, and also kind of save you from having to put different things on credits that are those smaller expenses that we know are coming. And so now Vincenza is going to talk a little bit about some budgeting tracking.
Okay, so we talked about tracking and monitoring your budget. So if you're doing a budget, what tools are you using to keep track of your budget? Because remember, this was number 4 in the 5 elements of any budget. So do you think monitoring your budget is going to help you stick to it?
Yes.
For sure, yeah. So it actually makes it easier on yourself if you are tracking it. Maybe you do it weekly. I wasn't doing it daily, but I was just kind of checking in like, okay, I budgeted $400 this month for groceries. I'm not even halfway through the month and I've already spent $300. So either I say, okay, I didn't do a realistic budget, or it kind of puts a little thing in my head that says, I need to like scale it back a little bit, and just like, it just kept me like keeping it front of mind and making sure that I wasn't going over. And I wasn't going to beat myself. Nobody should beat themselves up about it if you end up going over your budget, and you just have to, at the end of the month, you just have to go, okay, I need to reevaluate this. So there's lots of ways to track and monitor your spending. You can use apps, you can use on your phone, like that little note feature, you can write stuff down or just have a little notebook. I mean, it's what works for you, because I still do a paper budget. I mean, I do electronic stuff, but I still have that budget that I started using years ago, and I just kept making copies of it. And every month I just in case my computer crashes or I don't have access, it's just for me, it's peace of mind seeing it on that paper. And it's so fast now because I've been doing it for so long. It doesn't take me as long as it did when I first started. So I just want to talk about a few methods that are out there that you could do. So the cash envelope system, it's something that I actually used when I was first new to budgeting. And I use this for those variable things like clothing, going out to eat, groceries. And if you're not really keen on like having to track every single receipt, I would spend the money, stick the receipt in the envelope, right? And then when the money was gone, I wasn't going to spend any more in that category. And that really kept me in line for when I first started budgeting. And then you have the choice of, okay, I didn't spend my clothing budget, all of it this month. I can either save it for next month and get to add it to my budget the next month, or I take that money and I put it somewhere else. Like maybe I was a little short in groceries, so I'm going to sacrifice my clothing money and add it to my grocery money or going out to eat or whatever. So it gives you a little bit of wiggle room. But it helped me with like, especially with the going out to eat and the shopping. It's like when the money's gone, I'm done. And I just have to wait till the next month. So it actually gave me permission to spend, but it gave me like some guardrails. Because I had an issue with like not reining it in, right? I didn't have any boundaries. So that really helped me.
Can I add on to that real quick?
Yeah.
I have seen that to be so helpful at the grocery store because it's so easy if you have money on your card that you can just swipe it and then forget how much you spent. Whereas if you do take, say, $40 or $60 with you to the grocery store or however much you have for the week, it really disciplines you to prioritize your purchases and not impulse buy it.
Budget.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it's like if you leave your card at home, it's got $60 for the grocery store, then you're like, all right, this is all I can spend. So how much can I get within that $60?
So another way to track expenses is just using a ledger like paper and pencil. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. Just writing down. I would recommend like doing 3 columns. For example, if you're going to do the paper and pencil, write like what the expense was, what type, like was it rent, was it utilities, was it groceries, and then what's your budget for each item? Okay, I'm going to spend $400 for groceries. I'm going to spend, this is my car payment, this is my rent, and then after that, have another column that's like, okay, what did I actually spend? Right, and then that way you can see it in paper and be like, this is what I said I was going to do. This is what I did, and then see how that works for you. And you can do that weekly. I did that in the beginning because putting everything together at the end of the month felt overwhelming to me because it was a lot of receipts. So I was like on a Sunday afternoon, I just said, I'm spending 20 minutes and I'm just going to look at my stuff and that's all I'm going to do. Okay. And that helped me for me, I like to break my tasks down into smaller chunks, but again, everybody's different. So that's just something that worked for me, especially when I was new to budgeting. You can also use a spreadsheet on your laptop, computer, basically doing the paper and pencil just in a computer. And there's a lot of free stuff out there too that has like fillables that you can download from the internet and save to your computer, and you can put in your own information. There's so much free stuff out there. Now we move on to apps. Depending on how tech savvy you are, there's lots of free budgeting apps. Mint is one that I personally use. Some people love this, some people hate it. I have a colleague on my team that does not like it and does not use it. And it's just about finding a method that works for you. What I like about it, if you want it, first of all, it's free. I can log in from my computer, from my smartphone. If you want it to, it'll sync with your bank account so you can actually see how you're tracking. Every time you swipe that card, that debit card, or take money at an ATM, it'll pop up on your ledger, and then you say, okay, yeah, that was groceries, that was gas, and sometimes you can split. Like I went to Walmart and some of it was medicine, some of it was groceries. And if you have a separate category for that. So there's a bit of a learning curve with this one. And that's what it took me a while to figure out how to use it and its quirks, and it's gotten better over the years. I've been using it for about 7 years. I really like it, but it's not the only one that's out there. Good Budget's another one. It's based on that cash envelope system, and it's another free app for the basic. A lot of them have like upgrades if you want to have it have more capabilities. You pay like a monthly subscription. I've never paid a monthly subscription for a budgeting app. I think for me, the free version was fine. What we like about this one is that you can allocate your money towards specific spending categories. Like if you can see here, the budget was $150 for groceries, and this person's tracking so far in the month, they've spent $46. And so you kind of like get a visual and see like, okay, where am I tracking? How am I doing so far? For those variable expenses.
Okay.
Every Dollar is another one, pretty similar. The free version, you actually have to enter your transactions. Some people don't like that, but it does add a level of intentionality, because you have to look at every single transaction. Some people don't like it, and some people love it. If you want it to automatically sync with your bank, there's a monthly fee for that, or actually it's like $130 a year. Most of them do have free trials if you want to check it out before you pay for it. And it varies. Like this one, I think they give you 2 weeks free. And then if you like it, you pay. If not, you can just stick with the free version. And then Nancy app is one that I discovered recently. It was actually specifically geared toward women. And it's supposed to be a very simple, as you can see, it kind of looks like Mint. It's kind of the same concept. This person's linked their credit card, their savings account, and their checking account. So you can see what the balance is, and then you build your budget in here, and then every time you have an expense, you categorize it and you tell it, okay, this is where. So it's pretty straightforward. Again, there's a free version. And then if you want it to do more things, then there's a fee for that. So if you're going to look at apps, just keep in mind, look at reviews online, make sure that there's data security. Like with Mint, I have 2-factor authentication. So if I log in on my computer, even though it's the same computer that I use all the time, it sends me a code to my phone that I have to enter in order to get on. So that's just an extra level of security. You don't have to link bank accounts or credit cards if you're not comfortable with it. You don't have to do it. It just is more manual tracking. You want to make sure that the data is backed up to the cloud, that it works on different platforms. If you have a spouse or partner or family member that's working with you with a household budget, I like the ones that allow more than one person to log in. Like my husband and I can pull up the Mint budget on each of our cell phones, and we can see like how we're tracking. Like if he wants to spend money in something, we only have X amount for this. So, okay, I'm only going to spend this much money. So again, finding one that works for you, because some of them might be a little bit more complicated than others. And so finding one that you find is user friendly. So in order to be successful with using an app, it's just really important that you actually look at it more than once. Like look at new transactions. It's a good way to secure like, oh, I don't recognize this transaction. What is this about? And then just checking your budget categories and then viewing your account balances. So review and evaluate how you're doing with spending. If you're looking at ways to free up some categories of spending, Alicia's going to take you through real quick, because we're running short on time here, what's called a step-down principle. And she's going to walk you through that real quick and explain what that means.
All right. So the step-down principle, like Vincenza mentioned, is a principle developed by a Utah State University professor, and is ultimately designed to help you free up some money in your variable categories. And so you can pick 1 or 2 categories where you may find yourself overspending, or where you're wanting to cut back on. Say it's eating out. We'll use that as our example. And so it's ultimately so that you aren't cutting it out completely, but that you're reducing it a little bit at a time. And so with the step down principle, you can either use it for the frequency that you are doing that thing, like eating out. Say you're eating out every single day, then you could cut down to 4 days a week and then gradually cut down to 3 days a week, and then maybe even just twice a week. And so then you would be freeing up a little bit of money with each step that you step down. Or you could also use it to cut down in the level of expense with it. So if you're going and eating out at Olive Garden every time, then you could maybe step down to a less expensive restaurant. And then the next one could be down to like a fast food restaurant, or eating at home would be like the lower expense for it. And so there's a few different areas that you can use it, and ultimately you can customize the principle to work best for you. Like I mentioned, either in frequency or the expense. And so then you're just cutting it down a little bit at a time. So it's a more sustainable change. And so it's important first to determine where you are. Based on the 3 descriptions above, of either the least amount of money you want to spend in a category, or the least expensive way to purchase something, or the lowest number of times in a budget category, determine which stair describes best your situation for different budget categories. So first of all, just figure out where you are and where you would like to go, and then how to get there. And then, like we mentioned, right here is just another example of how you could slash your expenses. So purchasing items from places where they are sold for less, learning to make things yourself. I really love cheesecake, but it's really expensive to buy from the store. So I found a recipe that only costs $4 to make instead of $15 from the store for a whole cheesecake.
Wow.
And so that's one example that we found in my life. And then also reducing the volume of the product or the frequency of the service. Eliminating part of a paid experience without sacrificing all of the fun. So going and doing a little bit less expensive activities would be another example.
Okay, so it was all about budgeting for success, setting yourself up. So knowing what you have, when you get paid, how often you get paid is a great way to start building a realistic budget. When you know those 5 elements, which we talked about, the 5 elements of any budget, if you recall, I'll just review them real quickly. What's your why? Knowing your income, setting yourself some limits for your expenses, but making sure you budget for wants and fun. If you don't do that, you're not going to stick to it. Tracking and monitoring, figuring out what's going to work for you. Using an app, doing it on paper, writing it in a notebook, looking on your smartphone. And then, budgeting can be fun because I feel like it gives you permission to spend. It's really rewarding when you've got everything taken care of and you're able to do the things that you want to do instead of worrying about it and making it feel like drudgery. It really was something that I wish I would started as a young adult in my life. It's just not something that I was taught or raised to do, in my life. So we all come from different places in terms of where we are with personal finance, but I really feel like it's been freedom for me. And when you know where your money's going, you're just more intentional, and you might be surprised. You might make different decisions because when you see where your money's been going, that might not be so important to you. And you say, you know what, I'm not comfortable with how much money I've been spending on this thing. And this other thing is more important. So I'm going to cut out a little bit of this so I can do more of that. And that's what I think budgeting really does for you. It's not restrictive. For me, it's freedom. So in summary, I challenge you. This is our challenge to you. If you've never done budgeting or you've tried it and you said, it's not for me, forget it. I encourage you to try again. If you're not sure where you are, go back and look at the last 30 days of expenses. and just like go through your credit card statement, your bank statement, and say, okay, this charge was groceries, this charge was gas, this charge was Target, and I don't remember what I bought, whatever it is. And then see where your money's going, and then you can evaluate your budget and be like, okay, this is how it needs to be based on how I've been spending. And you can always modify that, but at least it's like you have to start somewhere, right?
Yes.
So I would love for you to share, Kaylin, if you're comfortable with it, like one thing that you learned today that you're excited about, or you plan to use, or you'd never heard about that maybe you want to try. Anything that you learned that you didn't know before you joined us today?
With the variable, with the fix, actually putting those in the category of actually, making sure that, hey, this is the fix and this is the variable.
Okay.
And understanding that the other thing is with what is it, with not with the spreadsheet, but with the tracking everything down with the outs, where all of my money is going. So
yeah,
2 things that I'm gonna really look into. So
awesome.
Yeah,
We're excited for you.
thank you.
So if you're interested in doing like a deeper dive into personal finance, I want to encourage all of you to look at a course called Money Master, PowerPay Money Master, and we'll put the link. If you could put the link in the chat, Alicia. Are you a Utah resident?
No, I live in Atlanta, Georgia.
Okay. Well, we encourage you to apply for Utah residents. You can apply for a fee waiver, but I would say try. No guarantee, but you can get a waiver for the course. It's an online course that goes into more deep into personal finance. That's online, self-paced. Just in case you're interested in looking into that. And then I wanted to just mention that you can also register for other webinars, going to the same place that you did. We do these webinars all the time. Like next time we're talking about debt or credit.
I think, I don't mean to cut you off. I'm signed up for all 4 of them for the month.
Oh, awesome. Okay, great. We look forward to seeing you
next time. Yeah.
Next time. And just want to mention, we as humans, we learn by repetition.
Correct.
So practice. And just because you did one budgeting course doesn't mean you can't do another one with us, because every time you look at something, you learn something new. So we would encourage you to, to hang out with us and learn more stuff.
Okay.
We'd love to hear your feedback. If you wouldn't mind, we put a link in the chat, or just scanning this on your smartphone and it's just a quick 2-minute survey. It helps us help others. What your feedback is, we take that, we look at that, we take it very seriously, and we hope to improve future webinars. If you're not already following us, join us on the blog at Utah Money Moms. All of us here are contributing editors, and we write blogs, and we put tips and tricks and all kinds of things, all things about personal finance. We share stories and tips. So follow us at Utah Money Moms. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and then that's the link for the webinars in the future. So they're all listed on Eventbrite.
All right.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And we look forward to seeing you in the future.
Yes.
Please feel free to also tell your friends and family about it as well, and invite them to join if you feel like it was useful as well.
I will.
Awesome. It was great having you today.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.